I'm Nishchala Agnihotri. I'm the content lead at First Hive, and we have started this series of masterclass with a lot of deliberation and thought for marketers. And that's because there's so much being spoken about everything that's got to do with marketing, but there's very little out there, that's available for marketers when it comes to stitching the data that they're sitting on with how they can add more revenues with the existing customer base, right? And today's masterclass is highly curated and focused at addressing the challenges of all the marketers in the manufacturing and the distribution sector. So today's masterclass is designed around how there's a context where there is a data-driven D2C world that's emerging in the sector, and multiple layers of within the supply chain and all the channel partners who have become, who have emerged as influencers that can hold a high command on the customer's decision. Today's masterclass is being partnered by Microsoft, and we have Mr. Mahendra, who's joined us from Microsoft. Mr. Mahendra, thank you so much for your time. He'll be our first speaker for today. He's a senior industry advisor from Microsoft who has deeply worked in the manufacturing and distribution sector. And he brings his own, apart from his expertise and experience, he brings his own personal anecdotes and thoughts and insights that will help marketers within this sector thrive better. Our second speaker is Vishnu Bavaraju, and he's the Chief Growth Officer from First Hive. He'll be bringing a lot of context to how do we stitch customer data in such a disorganized world where for manufacturers, it's so hard to take the offline data online and to be able to actually reach the end customer with technology that's available around us. And over to you, Mr. Mahendra. We would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Good afternoon to all our participants. My name is Mahendra Hasabnis, and I head industry advisory for manufacturing within Microsoft. Been in the industry for 25 years, and today I will be presenting and talking with you guys with the two hats essentially. One is a practitioner hat, as well as another one is a consumer hat, because we all are consumers. And when I'm going to talk about some of the changing customer or consumer buying patterns or scenarios, I am pretty sure you guys are going to resonate with my experiences or my thoughts, kind of a thing. In the today's age, we are living into the fourth industrial revolution. And if we take a quick peek into how this revolution has happened, it's been almost, I would say more than 200 years over which this revolution has happened. We have moved basically, from the steam powered and machine production, age to the relays and electricity driven, mass assembly production age, to the computer aided automated manufacturing, and today we are in the age of smart sensors and controls into the cyberspace and cyber physical systems. And that is allowing us to actually embed some of the intelligence within the products that are going into the hands of our customers. And not only that, it is also allowing us to basically learn the product behavior as well as the consumer behavior by way of the connected products that are getting developed today. And that is what is becoming very interesting and important in learning from the customers, and then developing the further products to suit the customer requirements. But before put these products into the customer hands, there is a requirement to also understand not only just the use of our product, but in general, who's our customer, what are their preferences, what are the conveniences that they are looking for, and how they are, buying this stuff. So if we quickly look at this industry trends which are driving across the industry, which is connected supply chain, connected vehicle, this factory of the future, which is a human machine centered manufacturing, digital twins of everything which is getting created and used to digitally experiment with it. And similarly, your product as a service is taking the precedence. And then lastly but not least, customer experience is paramount for the our manufacturers. So what it is essentially driving towards the rise of direct to consumer marketing, or it is influencing marketing in the manufacturing, because traditionally this has been a B2B marketing kind of a scenario, whereas it is very quickly moving away from B2B to C, or even B2C marketing of the products that we see. So let's quickly look at the changing consumer behavior. And now you can see easily that we are completely surrounded by the social media. We are surrounded by the digital channels. We are surrounded by the information. In fact, at one time, I felt that we are overloaded with the information more than what we need, and that is sometimes even confusing us, because gone are those days when if you want to buy something, you would be asking around your friends, your trusted advisors, kind of a thing. Similarly, in the manufacturing industry, if you are making some buying decisions, may it be raw material or like goods that you're buying versus the end customers which are buying some of these products, which we look for experience of others. We look for basically an advisor kind of a thing. We look for reviews and whatnot, but not necessarily all those will be real reviews, or they will be real things which are out there in the social media. So there is a great need of curation of some of these contents. There is a great need of knowing oneself and knowing his rightful requirements, kind of a thing. And that is what is happening with the changing customer behavior. So while this changing customer behavior is happening, let us look at some of the interesting, companies, how they influenced this customer, how they basically changed the perception of this end customer about their product, and increase their sale, exponentially. This is an example of a Honda Acura, and you might know that when you talk about Acura, what immediately comes in your mind is a luxury SUV. But then the customers are when it is a SUV, or when it's luxury and it is SUV, they look for like a rugged vehicle. They look for like a vehicle which can be driven in all terrain, and it can be like abused basically. Whereas this perception was to be broken. And what Honda or Acura did actually is they ran the customer analysis. They ran this customer sentiments. They looked for like what their vehicle is associated with, and then they created a program where the serious buyers that they had identified, or customers that they had identified, they actually took them to the racetrack, and each of them, they gave them a experience of this vehicle as a rugged multi-purpose vehicle, or SUVs, all-terrain vehicle kind of a thing. And the customers came out wowed in terms of the vehicle was luxurious, as well as meeting their requirements of off-roading and rugged driving kind of a thing. And they became their ambassadors in the entire community, which increased their sales. Another similar example is Whoosh. I mean, you might have not even heard of this company, but believe me, this is one of the fastest growing company in Canada. These guys are into the personal hygiene cleaning products, or the microfiber products and whatnot, kind of a thing. How would they would have differentiated themselves? Very simple thing. What they did was they created the network of their trusted customers, and they analyze the customer basically voices from the common man's everyday conversation. and they identified basically the target areas and the hotspots and whatnot. And then through the community of a influencers, what they had, they pushed their product. They even went to a extent where in some of the top shows, they showed that how these influencers are using their product to clean their mobile phone, and how they are health conscious basically, and that immediately became a hit kind of a thing. Apart from that, Asian Paints is another one, a fantastic example. Many of you might have experienced it, that uh, when you are looking to paint your house, you're not just looking to paint your house with any paint kind of a thing. Nowadays, consumers are very picky, and they want to basically decorate their house. They want their house to be like unique, and then suiting to their personality or their interior that they have. And that's when you engage with a painter service or whatnot, you would not get the rightful advice kind of a thing. And that's what Asian Paints saw, that there is a need for a trusted advisor, an interior decoration advisor to my end customers, along with the paint that I'm providing. Apart from that, gone are those days when you would paint your house for like 20 days or 30 days kind of a thing just before Diwali. You want basically a quick service. You want the best quality service and the product, and the product which provides you was the Asian Paints. And they turned around their declining sales to a huge I would say success, by way of adding the value added services along with the products, and addressing the customer sentiments. So let's see how you would what is enabling this D2C or influencer marketing. And these are some of the common things that you would quickly see. Hyper personalization, because everyone is looking for my unique brand, my unique basically identity in the products that I use. Digitalization, so the information is available, and you would research the product 100 times before you actually go and buy this particular product from the end user. The value chains are becoming quite agile. So from the point of desire to research to availability of the product, the expectation is growing to shrink that cycle kind of a thing. Data driven insights, so all what you do in your day to day is getting basically tracked. You yourself are providing access to the social media, and that is basically available to be used as the mechanism of understanding what you need more better, and then enabling this. Of course, digital marketing is talk of the town. And then technology led shopping experiences. I was just talking to a group of people at Mahindra, where we talked about how Volvo actually created a augmented reality based experience for their buyers, where their buyers can actually see their vehicles in 3D and choose individual components of their vehicle, the configuration that they can make, and truly buy a personalized vehicle for them, versus going and just test riding available models from the vehicle that they have. And last but not least, I think the pandemic also has put a lot of change in terms of uh, consumers are at home. They are basically remotely engaging, and they are all the time on the digital gateways, I would call it. And that's what is giving rise to basically reach them through the digital mechanisms. uh, what benefits do this bring? And these are the benefits that anybody can guess kind of a thing, which is much better understanding of your customer and their needs. Improve basically their loyalty, because a repeating buyer, and no other customer is nice than the repeating buyer, and then the person becomes your influencer to bring more business. Your faster time to market, so you could basically analyze your buyers, and then bring your rightful products much faster to in their hands. Increase control over your brand, product, and also your reputation, because now you are able to with the data and the analysis, are able to take the what do you call them, informed decision, and then the targeted actions kind of a thing. And then of course this omni-channel commerce is ensuring lowering of your cost per lead, as well as the cost per action kind of a thing. uh, There are a couple of, I think, slide I'll just skim through, but there are certain consideration, and they are no other than like, you have to invest in technology. Some of these things are not cheap. You have to invest in the infrastructure. You have to basically, identify the potential channels of conflict, basically, rise your customers' expectation, and essentially, implement these technologies for the success. So be patient, and then the results will, come through. So what are these some of the strategies for these successful influencer marketing? So do give in consideration for identifying the gaps in the market for the products that you are pushing. Get everyone on board. Basically, your distributors, your influencers, your product manufacturer or your production unit R&D, and then design your campaigns in such a way that they are much more meaningful and targeted for your customers. Definitely understand your audience, because when you're getting into the area of targeted marketing, you need to basically segment them properly, and then ensure that the rightful features are brought to their attention and whatnot. So there are others, basically, like get your timelines tight. Of course, you need these projects not to be like a science projects. They need to be basically envisioned and then quickly enabled, and that's where you need a fantastic partner who has a stronger experience and a ready infrastructure to kind of get onto this journey much faster. And then of course have a right technology in the place. So with this, I will come to my summary, and then we would be very eager to even hear Vishnu on his perspective. So in summary, today's consumers are well read, they're self-aware, and they're highly demanding. Customers expect the direct access to the source of the product and the services. One of those days where you would believe on the middlemen, and then listen to about the product from the middlemen. Manufacturers, they gain better understanding of the their needs of their customer by the direct selling, because they're connecting and they're analyzing their end customers. Cloud and AI are absolutely essential, and they are completely eliminating the middleman in the today's economy, and it is making it possible to even think of some of the innovative marketing campaigns in the D2C. And lastly, I would say this personalized shopping experience that are convenient and digital will be must for accelerated growth for the manufacturers. So with this, I would take a pause and look for any questions or any thoughts from the panelists.
Hey, thank you, Mahendra, for that very insightful presentation. In fact, what's happened between the pre-COVID and post-COVID era, it's so inevitable for us to, as manufacturers, not to think about the digital landscape, right? Take it brands like IKEA or a simple purchase on Amazon. It could be a light bulb or anything of that sort. These influencers who actually give the ensure that the brand promise is delivered to the end consumer in terms of installation, service setup, anything of that sort. I think this is that was very insightful in terms of having us to understand how important influencers are. And I have one question. So in your third slide, you were mentioning that influencer marketing is very important. We need to adopt a D2C strategy. But, it's also for my understanding and the curiosity of our audience is how exactly and how important is it for a marketer in the manufacturing sector to focus on the customer experience as much as to focus on the influencer experience. Like we've had instances, within our own customer portfolio, wherein Gulf India has paid so much attention to their mechanics who actually deliver their product, right? And similarly, right. Legrand has put so much attention onto their electricians, and brands like Prince Pipes, they have put in so much of effort and attention into their plumbers. So how far is, and how do marketers weigh between end customer experience versus influencer experience?
Absolutely. It's a very, very good question. And I think it is very essential to cover both the bases, for the simple reason that a very well educated influencer but no visibility to your end customer would create the doubts in the mind of your end customer. So just take an example of Gulf Oil that you mentioned. If you go to a car station or whatever, like you're changing your oil, and the technician is telling you that, hey, I'm going to put a Pensol or say Castrol, but if it is not basically on the minds of the customer, then he would immediately question, and then it would call for a lot of expert skills of the influencer to really convince the customer. Versus when it is like he's already aware of it, there is a brand perception, and the advisor is telling, then it becomes like a no brainer, like a complete trust, and then the sale goes, kind of a thing. So I see that a good amount of visibility, and you have to exploit the channel, which is your end customer, but then also the influencer into this puzzle, kind of thing.
Thanks, Mahendra. Vishnu, we have Vishnu here, who's our next speaker. Before we jump on to what Vishnu has to share, do you have any questions for Mahendra, Vishnu?
No, I was listening through what Mahendra was talking about, and the points and the questions that you were very, very interesting conversations. What I gathered and what I also grasped is that the kind of a CDP or a marketing is not just towards the end consumers. That anyway we have to do as brands. It's also the influencers who are a key part of the overall journey of the customers, right? And how do we use that data to make those journeys for the individuals, for the consumers in the D2C space, as well as from B2B2C space, right? B2B2C is gaining so much of traction these days. A lot of brands that I talk to, even a lot of CEOs and CFOs and CDOs that I meet, the one question that I keep hearing is, hey, we are in this B2B business for quite a long time. How do we transition from a B2B company to a B2B2C company, right? What do I need to do that? Because I get, there are a lot of conduits between me and my consumer, but how do I make those conduits actually my brand ambassadors rather than just being a conduit for me, right? So that's a kind of conversation which comes. So I think, Mahendra, what you talked about, it's very, very insightful on how a CDP is a kind of one of the latest technologies in the hands of the marketers today to make the transition, right? Its marketing is not just about sending messages, but it is also part of the transition of the organizations from a simple B2B to B2B2C as well. Fantastic points that you made, Mahendra.
Vishnu, I completely agree to you. In fact, like I mentioned at the beginning of my session, that I am talking as a practitioner as well as a consumer. And as a consumer, I can very easily see that I need a trusted advice when I am making a higher purchase, or I'm making a I'm going for an experience. So I no more buy stuff, or even the manufacturers in the industry are not buying stuff for the necessity. They are buying for the value. And that value has to be articulated by somebody who is an advisor, kind of a thing. And that would come only if they know that what I'm looking for and what really is my necessity, kind of a thing. So good, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, very good point, Mahendra. So in earlier days, even from a software standpoint, right? I mean, we have spent about 25 industries, you and me, in this industry, and it was always like, okay, I sold my software, and then it is up to you how you do it. So today, even as Microsoft, you would have seen, right, when you sell cloud services, people ask, hey, how do I use it? How do I make use of it, right? I'll pay you only when I'm able to use it. Similarly, for us also, it's not just about we sell a CDP and get out. Actually, our customers have demanded, and therefore we have set up something called a campaign ops team, where it is not just a product that we service to the customers, but actually there is a team from our side sitting with the customers, telling them what kind of campaigns will work and how to configure those campaigns as well. Because if it doesn't deliver value, the software is as good as anything else. I mean, it's of no value if it is not generating the ROI.
Yeah, so Vishnu, with all this discussion brewing, I think our audience are waiting for the next segment. And this discussion has given a great segue for us to kickstart your part of the presentation. So over to you, Vishnu. We'd love to, you can start sharing the screen, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to cover on my first slide, which is already covered by Mahendra and your conversation, right? CDP is not just about, there is a kind of, when I speak to a lot of people, they always think that, hey, I'm a manufacturer and, I don't really touch my end consumers directly. Does a CDP or a marketing tool will really help me? But yes, it helps every marketer, because today we are seeing marketers not only getting into B2B2C that I talked about, D2C as well, right? We are seeing, let's say, home furniture companies, or, interior companies, or even paints companies who used to just sell products earlier, now actually getting into design and, also, implementation services for end consumers. So manufacturers are getting into the D2C, and also they're bolstering up their B2C segment as well. In both places, there is a value that a CDP brings in. Now, what do you do with the CDP, and how do you do that part, right? I'll just give you an example. I think Mahindra and Nishla, you were talking about how the influencers. I think you took in the simple example of, let's say, mechanics. Let's say an oil company, a lubricants company, if they have to influence their mechanic community, maybe lakhs of mechanic community through a CDP and a loyalty platform. So you would typically do the loyalty, but what a CDP can bring in is that persona-based and personalized experience. I'll give an example. Let's say to a mechanic, I can always send that, hey, you sell, 20 liters of my lubricant this month and get 1,000 bonus points extra. Fantastic. It's a very, very transactional thing. But to the same mechanic, if I know this, the segmentation profile of that mechanic based on the insights that I've captured, or data based on which I have generated certain insight, which says that, let's say, and this is one of our customers who have used it, right? A mechanic who is in the age of, let's say, early 30s, has a lot more propensity to, let's say, redeem their loyalty points, maybe to buy, let's say, an example, a small bicycle for their child, right? They may have a child at that age. Now, if I do a campaign to those influencers saying, hey, if you do this or achieve this goal, right, you can redeem, or you can, get a gift of a bicycle for your child. Suddenly the impact changes, right? It's no longer transactional, but it is very, very relationship oriented. It is very persona based change that we are bringing in, how we are engaging with our influencers. And similarly on the individual customers as well, right? We were talking to an automotive customer, where if the customer is actually looking at a particular vehicle when they logged in, or when they opened the website, looking at the vehicle, selected certain colors. And next time, if I go back to that same automotive customer website, I will just start from, where, any customer will start. Rather, what I would like to see is that where my journey ended last time. And if my journey on their digital property starts where I ended last time, if they are capturing that insight about me, and also combine those insights with what people like me would have done, and therefore, do a hyper personalization from me, and suddenly my impact of that, or my top of mind recall of the brand suddenly shoots up, right? So what a CDP does is not just about marketing. That anyway is the ultimate goal, but how you do the marketing, how you personalize both your influencers and your individual customers as well, with a very, very, very individualized experiences that you can create. Now, how do we do that, right? Today, most of you would know this. You go to an Amazon or a Flipkart, you browse for a product, you go to some sports page or a news page, suddenly that product comes up as a pop-up saying that, hey, here is a mobile phone which is 15% discount and so on. So today that happens because of what we call as a third-party cookies. I'm just getting into tech a little bit. I'll not go deep. Third-party cookies. The reason I'm bringing in that is very important, because there are regulations coming up across countries where the third-party cookies are going to be vanishing, right? Because of the regulatory reasons, those won't be working any longer. So therefore, it becomes very, very important for brands to start relying on more on the first-party data, right? So today you're relying on third-party data. You just do an audience push to Facebook, or you do an audience push to Google Ads, and they will manage based on my digital identity that I would have left over on the web. So they will create a certain profile of me, and they will start targeting me wherever I'm going. But once the third-party cookies goes away, right? Well, how do you then create that personalization for the end customer? The second aspect is also when you're working on the third-party cookies, they don't know. For instance, I would have gone to an Amazon, bought a mobile phone, but the third-party DMPs that do an ad retargeting to me on my Facebook or any other channel, Google Ads or wherever, they don't know that I have already bought the product. They'll still come up and show the same ad, which means the marketers are losing a lot of money just broadcasting and spraying and praying on the campaign messages. And second, it is also, it's not so great experience, because since I have bought already, why are you showing this ad to me again? So what a first party data does is it takes the behavioral as well as the transactional data that the customer has, you have about the customer, integrate that with any other data. You may have, let's say, third-party data, which is, the third-party data providers. You give my email address, there are a lot of service providers who will tell me about what is my psycho or behavioral profiles. So you can enrich that first-party data by borrowing the third-party data. But you can't, as a marketer, you cannot just rely only on the third-party data, right? So what a CDP does is it strengthens your first-party data insights, enriches that with third-party data, or when, let's say, you are in a distributed dealer kind of model, your dealers and distributors may bring in a second-party data. So you can bring that data as well, put it all together and create those kind of personalized experiences, as well as making very, very high value or highly relevant cross-selling opportunities or cross-selling messages to the customers. And then you can also create the journeys for the customers, right? To those people who have sent an email, if they click, what do I do? If they click but did not open, what do I do with them? They opened but they did not transact, what do I do with them? So you can kind of create a complete journey orchestration for the customer. And it's not just the journey orchestration. What the CDP also does, it will predict, saying that at what time of the day, what day of the week, when you send that message, this particular profile, we may or may not know that individual, but this profile of individual or a lookalike of this individual has a higher propensity to go and transact or go and buy, right? Or if you send an email campaign, at what time of the day the person, or through what channel, if you run a campaign, the customer is more likely to respond to your campaign. So the CDP leverages a lot of the data that ingests from first, second, third party data, builds this dispositional parameters of the individual customers as well as your influencers, and it will help you optimize the overall cost of marketing, because now you're not doing a carpet bombing, but rather you are going very, very razor sharp targeting, where you are going with statistical probabilities of when the customer is likely to transact with you when you send that campaign, right? That's what you can do. And like I said, right, when you are doing the experiences or the journeys for the customers, it's not just about you. As a brand, you may be doing, I'm an automotive OEM, I would like to do a campaign to a lot of people. Let's say I have a customer base or a prospect base that I have built over the past 10 years, where I want to do these campaigns. I want to do a lot of hyper-personalized campaigns to them. But at the same time, my dealers have a lot of data that I don't have, right? So how do I enable those dealers? So that's where the B2B2C model also comes in, where as an OEM, as a brand, I create the campaign structure. I say what campaign should go to who, but then I let my dealer to bring their own data, BYOD, bring your own data, right? The dealer can bring their own data, which the OEM may not have, and still run the standardized campaigns that the OEM has defined. So it suddenly empowers your dealers to reach out to their own targets, to their own prospect data that they have, without, a lot of times dealers won't be comfortable sharing the data back to the OEM or the brand. But now, and they will do their own rudimentary old methods of calling and all that, right? So instead of that, now the dealers can also do very hyper personalized targeting and messaging and campaigns to their customers on their data, but by sticking to the brand guidelines that the OEM or the brand would have defined. So that increases the conversion rate even for the dealers, and therefore they will also see a lot of benefit from this, right? So there is a win-win for everyone, right? The dealer wins, the end consumer also sees very relevant messages from their dealers, from the dealers, and an OEM, you will also win because your dealers are now performing much, much better. So that's the B2B2C aspect of how you can, empower your influencers or even the dealers in between. So I think we are just short of time, so I'll like to leave few minutes. I don't know if you have few minutes, or at least there is 1 minute for questions that we can take. But here are the contact information. Please reach out to me or Avinash. We'll be very, very happy to. Again, as I said, this is not about selling a CDP. It's about discovering together, and also we bringing our own experience working across industries, bringing that and sharing with you what kind of campaigns will work, how those campaigns should be defined, how should you target your various segments and clusters and cohorts of customers. That's an experience that we would like to share. We'll be very, very happy to interact with you, understand the challenges that you have in your current MarTech, and see what is the best that we can do, or at least recommend what are the things that we could do. With that, Nishala, back to you. I hope I stuck to my time, but if you have time for queries, I'll be happy to take some queries.
I think good conversations should always be welcomed. So if we have some valuable questions, let's bring them on. But before that, I want to let the participants know that the masterclass does not end at the end of this Q&A session. You will be getting an ebook that talks about strategies specifically that helps marketers within the manufacturing and distribution sector. And also feel free to reach out to us at marketing@firsthive.com or any of these email IDs that are mentioned here, so that if you want to set up a one-on-one call with any of the manufacturing experts within the company, we'll be happy to extend that help and get an introduction done. So we already have one question coming in from our participants, which is, can the CDP place any of our existing, can the CDP replace any of our existing MarTech tools?
Sure. So the way the CDP works is, the whole funda of CDP is about coexistence, right? It starts with the coexistence, which means if you have a campaign management tool today, if you have a channel delivery tool today, so this will integrate with those to start with. But if you are looking at the whole purpose of CDP is to make the marketer's life easier by not having to grapple with tons of tools, right? So a full stack CDP, this is how, not us, but CDP Institute and a lot of analysts define it. A full stack CDP, what we mean by it is, it should start from ingesting data from any sources that you have. It should create a unique profile, enrich that unique profile at each individual customer or interaction level, help you do the segmentation, and also do the creation of the customer journey orchestration, and also do the campaign delivery as well. So from that standpoint, a FirstHive CDP is the world's first organically grown full stack CDP, which does this entire end-to-end operation. So yes, a precise answer to your question would be yes, there are certain MarTech tools, including your campaign automation, including your channel delivery, the tag manager. There are certain number of tools that it can replace, but it typically happens over a gradual period of time where we start integrating into your existing MarTech ecosystem. The idea of CDP is not to replace the tools. Yes, it can. It can. And a lot of our customers have benefited from commercially by using that, right? There are now lesser number of tools to use, lesser number of effort that goes into managing those tools. But the core proposition or the value of the CDP also comes in that it becomes the central brain which will power all your individual nodes or MarTech tools. Right now, each of your MarTech tool is operating in its own silo, right? A CMS will be operating its own silo, right? What is happening on the web? It doesn't know what the customer would have done on some other channel. But the CDP, what it does is it feeds that central intelligence into each of your individual MarTech tool by making the value or increasing the value of your existing MarTech tools themselves, even if it doesn't replace. And of course, if you replace, there are commercial implications of that as well. I mean, you can save money by replacing some of the MarTech tools.
Mahendra, it'd be really cool to listen to your perspective, because you come from a technology company, and people come with a lot of myths and inhibitions in terms of how CDP replaces or complements their existing MarTech stack.
No, I think what Vishnu articulated is absolutely right, that whether to replace or to augment is a completely decision to be taken by an analysis, because it needs to be understand that whether your existing stack is on-prem or it's like, on the hyperscaler, how much it is able to scale itself versus a new stack can, come in and then, uh, easily migrate you, from your existing stack and the data that you have. So these decisions are not like, yes or no kind of a decision. They are to be, kind of analyzed and a informed decision to be taken on these ones. But if the answer is it can replace. It has to. The answer is, to be analyzed.
Depends. Yeah. And Mahindra, just to add to that hyperscaler thing, recently, during Diwali, one of our customers, right, they ran 6x of campaigns just during the 2-3 days. 6x. Right? They would run 1 million campaigns a year, and suddenly between those Diwali days, that 1 week they ran 6 million campaigns, and and the system just scaled seamlessly because it's running on a hyperscaler, and it didn't have to worry about, hey, how do I scale this during sudden peak.
I think Christmas time in US or all these festive times, people have experienced the power of hyperscaler and the expert platform like First Hive CDP platform, how they beautifully basically do the job, kind of a thing. So yeah.
We have one more question, and this is a very interesting question, a practical one. It says, among manufacturing, which are the industries that are moving towards the D2C model as a top priority? Now, there are multiple niches within the manufacturing sector. So for which of those it's imperative to move into the D2C model? Which of them have adopted as either D2C strategy as their top priority? Any insights on that?
Yeah, this is a really nice question, and I was hoping this should come basically, because manufacturing is a space which is really complex and diverse kind of a thing. And probably the answer that I'm going to give is least expected kind of a thing. Medical devices industry is the one, pharmaceutical industries, I would say, is the one which is pretty much, kind of getting into this B2C space, because you can understand in the healthcare space, personalization is taking big step, ahead. Gone are those days when, you would have contact lenses manufactured with a 0.25, step. Today, customers like Johnson & Johnson are actually giving you a contact lens of specifically your number. So that level of personalization is happening into the industry, and that is only possible for them to, sustain in this market is by knowing their end customer and their influencer, which is a medical practitioner kind of a thing. And that is where these D2C is being planned in a very big way, where the data can be captured. Another industry where from a manufacturing standpoint, I would say, is the consumer industry, definitely the automotive industry, and Volvo is one example I can talk about, where I also mentioned that we are not far away, where you are experiencing the product from your home with the augmented reality kind of a devices, placing the order on the website, and the car is delivered at your doorstep kind of a thing. And that would definitely call for knowing your customer, knowing their taste, knowing their requirement, because there is so much of a variation that you have in the product that is possible to create. These are pretty much direct marketing examples I talked about. But then influencer marketing is gaining a lot of importance into the your home furnishing industry, the decoration industry, carpenter. I talked about kind of an influencers. Personal care products are also a industry which is on the rise of understanding the customer's needs, because every individual is different in terms of their skin type, their allergies and whatnot kind of a thing. And these industries are kind of growing in this area. Vishnu, any experience from your side?
I think you have covered it all. Consumer goods and the consumer appliances, auto ancillaries, personal and health products, building construction materials. So there are a lot of industries which are moving towards this. So D2C is something, because the more you have a direct contact with the customer, the better is, one, you can influence, and second, you also getting enriched data based on which you can plan your supply chains, you can plan your campaigns, you can understand your customers better. So a lot of manufacturers are moving towards that.
One industry, Vishnu, I would definitely like getting benefited is in agriculture, because
Yes.
that's one industry which is underserved, in my opinion, when it comes to the targeted, I would say, marketing or the knowing their end customer, because there is a perception that they are not a technology savvy, or the data it will not be available. But today, having a smartphone in the remotest village and the 5G connectivity are not really inhibitors for such things. So I think the agricultural industry is also another one I see that would be poised to take advantage of it.
Super.
So
I think we are a little over time, Nishala, but back to you. We give the control back to you.
Yeah. So we just have one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Which is it's a question that's asked very often, which is, what is the difference between a CDP and a CRM?
Okay, let me take that. So see, here is a difference, right? When you're talking about CRM, you're talking about known prospects or customers, people who have revealed themselves to you. They have shared either a mobile number or email address, some kind of an identifier about themselves. And therefore, you can start tracking them around that. Right? With that person, if a person called your contact center, you know that that person is called. If that person used that mobile number to make a transaction, you know that that particular individual. But as per analyst reports, more than 70% of transactions obviously happen on a personal identifier, but 70% of interactions are unknown. So people who have not revealed themselves to you on the web or what are the other channel, right? So that's where the CRMs have a disadvantage, because they start working around what we call as a primary key, technically, a personal identifier of the individual. So what CDP does is it works around the identifier of the interaction. A customer comes to your website, browses something and drops out, right? Your CRM can't track that, because they don't know who that customer is to track about. But a CDP will start tracking that with an interaction ID. The CDP creates an interaction ID and make sure that the person, whatever that person is doing from that device, simply device ID is an interaction identifier, will start tracking what the person is doing, so that that profile is not lost out. You're enriching that profile every time that customer is interacting with you through that. But someday the customer will reveal themselves by buying something or transacting something or calling your contact center and giving that mobile number. So they will reveal themselves someday, and suddenly all your historical context that you build on an interaction ID gets connected to this primary key. And then you have a whole lot of enriched information about that customer, what the customer has shown in the past, the behavior. So CRMs can't track the context. They will track, they're very good at tracking the transactions, known party transactions, but a CDP can build a whole lot of context even if the people can't reveal themselves. So that's a primary difference between a CDP and CRM. But obviously CRM is a record keeping system, whereas a CDP is a more of insight system. It will tell you when should you contact your customer so that the customer is better aligned with our disposition to respond to you or buy from you. So those are the insights that the CDP also brings in. And the third difference is that CRM is an application, right? So it's an application which is focused for a specific purpose. CDP is something which is much broader in terms of actually it shakes a hand with the CRM, and it works in tandem with the CRM to enrich even the CRM to go and engage the agents or your RMs, relationship managers, to engage better with the customers. So I would say that it's not either or, but it's a very good handshake between the CRM and the CDP to work together to give better experiences to the customers.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thanks for those insights. And we'll call it a wrap. It was a great session. I hope the audience enjoyed it equally. Also, feel free to reach out to us for any expert sessions that you want to have one-on-one. And also stay tuned for the ebook that we'll be launching soon, only for manufacturing marketers. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mahindra, once again for your time. And thanks, Vishnu.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mahendra.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone. Have a wonderful day.